See, I've already done this, so
All right, first up, we have the Village of Athens. Mayor Amy Saraga was here. Gail will be talking as well. So if you want to sit there or you come over here, it doesn't really matter.
Hot seat.
I'll just stay away from that. So I've been meeting with Gail and Amy to discuss our past lease agreement with the village town building, fire contracts, and a couple other things. One thing that's never happened by this town board is we have never made a motion to rescind the motion we made to take over the village hall 5 years ago. So we've invested money in an engineer to potentially look at building a new building out of our highway garage. And with that said, if we continue to move forward without a motion to scrap the idea of moving out to the town and abandoning the village town hall, we still have an obligation to the village to take over that building because the motion still stands. So if we're going to continue to go down the path of moving forward with the new building out at the town highway garage, this board has to pass a motion to rescind the motion we've already passed, or we essentially are going down the same path as staying in that building. So does anybody want to introduce the motion rescinding what we made to the village 5 years ago? All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Right.
Opposed?
Opposed.
So I'm opposed, so it's 2-2. So we'll have to do it again when our fifth member is here. Because it's essentially, this is something that should have been looked into before the members were on that board when this was made. So with that said,
Yeah, from the village standpoint, obviously, we want to move ahead with what was in place. You know, when I first became a trustee, it was already past due to turn the building over. It was supposed to happen late January of 2019. And, you know, I don't want to get into why it didn't happen. I don't really know all the particulars, but I think that the community is behind us sharing the building, us rehabbing the building, making it what it could and should be. And, you know, we've already invested lawyers, paying the lawyers to deal with it. All kinds of things have already been put in place. Like I said, it was over 2 years ago that this was just supposed to have happened. And my early days on the board, it was, well, it's close. You know, it's pretty much done. It's pretty much done. And it hasn't gotten done. So I know you guys are going to have to vote again. But I would just like to, for the village board, and I think a lot of residents, this is something that we want to see move forward. It's something that our comprehensive plan specifically states that people want to see a shared facility for the town and the village. I think it's more convenient. I know it's an investment, but I think the building and the community are worth making that investment. So that's just my piece on that. Additionally, if you're not going to move forward with it, we need to know as soon as possible so we can figure out what we're going to do. And the rent has been in arrears since the transfer did not occur in January of 2019. So we're looking at 2019's rent, 2020's rent, 2021's rent, and then we'll have to come up with a new agreement moving forward for how we're going to stay in the building while you're working on whatever your next endeavor is. So that's something, and I know I gave Supervisor Butler leases, and we have extensive bills. None of the utilities for cleaning costs have been covered during this time too. And, you know, I'm not here to place blame on why it's been hanging out so long, but I am here now to get this done if we can.
We do have the bills for all the cleaning, and they're sitting on my desk. I said, honestly, I haven't gone through them yet. 3 years of stuff to build.
Yeah, it was a big package.
And we're not paying Larry, so let's just get that right off the beginning.
That's all right.
So I guess it's gonna come down to the vote at our next meeting.
Okay.
Whether, I mean, if we end up going somewhere else, are you coming after us for the lease and utilities? If we stay, is it just the utilities? I mean, I guess we can meet on that outside of it, but, I think a lot of it comes down to what happens at our next meeting.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that the village should be made whole on the rent at this point, one way or the other. But, you know, we can meet on that and talk further. But, again, I just think, if I look out at the people that are here, most of them are in support of keeping the town and the village offices together in our wonderful community center that, yes, needs a lot of work, but we've done harder things, and I think we can do that too, as a joint community.
Well, in the previous comprehensive plan, I believe 2003, almost 80% of people that voted thought they should stay there. Now, this last comprehensive plan, that specific question was not answered. However, the sentiment put in the comments was that they wanted to see the two municipalities stay together. But again, as of right now, all we can do is, you know, wait for another vote.
Because in the end, I mean, all the village residents are our town constituents as well. So it's our tax dollars also, and I think we could work together and make this a great project.
I agree. It's just, this really is, it's not going to be up for questions. This isn't a public hearing, so, is that an issue?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a public hearing. I don't have to take questions, it's not a public hearing. I mean, I can take questions, but I don't want to take repeated questions over and over and over.
I just want to know what is it going to cost to make the building, town and the village environmentally safe for the people that work in it and the people that go into it. What is the cost? Is there a number, or do you have to pass it first and then you're going to tell us?
Well, we can't come to you with the price if we don't have the design. If we don't know which way we're going, we can't invest $300,000 in an engineer to come up with a design for something we're not going to use.
I got a better idea. If you call Aaron Flack, he might want to
No.
buy it.
No.
This,
Like I said, this is not what we're going to do, all right? So,
A lot of people might not understand that that building is
have a good
leased
night.
to
Sorry.
the village by South Athens School District. We cannot sell it.
there's a covenant in the
There's a
deed.
covenant in the deed, and I think that you probably know that, right?
I don't have it, I've seen it in the past.
Right.
That
So,
the
but you
village
must
does
have
own
known.
it, but I know there's always conditions.
Conditions are, it must remain a
It must
community
remain
building.
a community building.
Right, right. It must remain, if the village decides to give it up, because the school probably has first refusal on it, and is the school gonna wanna have that, or they just gonna
They
say?
probably don't want the building, but they probably want the money they could get for selling it.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm just saying, because something could be worked out, well, you know, yeah, sure, of course.
Exactly, they're not going to want the building, they're
I
going to
don't-
want the money.
I don't think this community wants to see that turn into condos.
There's not room for parking or any outside area for anybody that would want to buy a condo there. That's number one. That's just my opinion.
Well,
And I just, excuse me, there's a parking lot, that's it.
Rob, you said that this has been in the works for 5 years, and it got voted on by the board at that time, that they were gonna move forward, the town was gonna take over, the village was gonna pay rent to the town, is that correct?
Well, no,
Okay,
not
what?
technically correct.
Okay.
We were gonna take it over. The village was not gonna pay rent. What we were gonna do, they were gonna pay a rent for like 2 or 3 years until we came with a baseline and could do a prorated percentage of the utilities, and that's all they were gonna pay is a
But-
prorated per share of the
You
utilities.
said this has been 5 years in the works? Okay, so why are we voting to not do it? I mean,
Well, it's because it's sat stalled for so long. Again, we're not here to point fingers or anything like that, it sat dormant for so long, that, it's just like anything, if a motion's made at some point, the motion needs to be rescinded if you're gonna change direction.
okay. How much money has been invested in this endeavor so far?
I'm gonna say, we got 30 into Ryan Biggs and Associates to do needs assessment in the existing building. And we have the contract now for about 2/3 of that with Delaware Engineering. And I think that's all that's been invested so far. It could have been more, but Ryan Biggs came back and said, they quoted us twice what they charged us, but he said, structurally, we don't need to do any more study or look, investigation, because everything is fine. So that only costs us half of what it should. But other than that, I think that's it.
Well, I hope when the town board, everybody's here, that they take into consideration,
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
excuse me?
What'd you say?
I hope that when the town board votes on it again, that they consider the village and not just the town part of it, because we're all incorporated, and it's gonna cost somebody a lot of money either way. Whether you build a building, rehab that one where both of you can be in there, and make it a true community center, or I hope that they take that in consideration, that it's not just the town, but also the village is part of the town.
You said something, Mike?
I have a few things to say, if it's okay. Not over 20 years, the town has been talking about trying to build their own town hall. When Alvin Salvino was supervisor, he was pursuing property. He's looking at the property within the village itself. Town of Coxsackie, town of Catskill, they all have their own separate buildings besides the villages. There's a lot of people in the town. Now, I think they deserve something too, because if you look at the population as of 2020, there's approximately 4,000 people in the town and approximately 1,600 in this village, right? There's areas of the town that I've clocked that is about 14 miles away from this village building, right? So it's quite a distance that a lot of people out in the town also have to travel to do business. The old school,
Able to do it anyways.
the way we're seeing it, and questions I've asked of different contractors, you're looking at probably $3 or $4 million to rehab that building. That building is not conducive to an office building, it's a school. There's 7,000 square feet on each floor. About a third of that is hallway and stairs, because students that have to line up and everything. Ceilings are approximately 12 feet high. The windows are around 7 feet high. All those windows, and the girls from the office can tell you, they're lucky they haven't lost a finger yet, because all those windows all need to be replaced and be energy efficient. And I know the village started this energy efficient community thing a few years ago, right? So to replace those windows, there's almost 80 windows in that building. And it's quite an expense to get insulated windows and everything else. And historically correct, because that sits in the middle of the historic district. And the historic, the planning board and all that have to make sure that these windows are done historically. And if they try to bypass that, go ask the Stewart House what happened with their windows, right?
So you're saying that you would rather have the building torn down?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Not at all, right?
Well, Mike, I have to correct you on one thing.
What's that?
We do not, as a municipality, have to adhere to the village planning board.
I understand that, Rob, but it would be hypocritical.
No, it's not hypocritical, it's the law. It's the law.
Yes, I
We can
understand.
do, and it was put into effect for something out in Buffalo, that had to do with the municipality. Now, when I went to the village board, I expressed to them, you know, I can bypass the planning board together, 100%.
Right.
But that was not our intent, and we intended to work with the planning board up to
I
a point
know.
where it wasn't slowing us down.
Right, but you
Well-
still need energy efficiency.
Well, yeah, but that's, you know, where we're talking about, I mean, that's like, to me, that's like saying, you know, we're gonna worry about the color of the building or the color of the
Of
walls,
course.
because it's something it's gonna be new regardless. It's,
Right.
everything would be new, so.
No, I understand, so,
Can I ask a
anyway,
quick
moving
question?
on,
Okay.
So moving on, so asbestos abatement gets very costly. Under that gym, under that stage in that gym, there's an old boiler room there where the boiler's covered in asbestos. I've seen it, I've been in there, I don't think it has been abated since then, right? So there's another expense. The gym itself, full of mold, I can see mold on the walls. There's water leaking into that gym. That gym, to heat it up, you gotta start the heater in the fall, and maybe 3 days before. I worked in that gym quite a few years, you know what we were doing there. And the heating system needs to be already, the gym needs to be insulated. If we're gonna make this village energy efficient, you have to make everything energy efficient, code compliant with the energy codes, right? That's the gym. The village, to me, I see, needs a good, decent code, energy code and code compliant building. There's property here that they can build a nice office building. They only use 2 rooms, I think, in there, the police station and the clerk's office, right? To make a nice, energy efficient, air conditioned and well heated office that those girls could work in decently. And, like I said, that school, 12-foot high ceilings, I mean, that doesn't work. The town, to me, needs a modern town hall. The court system has to be upgraded and all this, It's all handicap accessibility now, Elevators cost a lot of money. Here we're talking about 1-level buildings. You don't need all that, you have your accessibility and everything else. The employees, I'd say, in the public and the town, this is actually trying to worry, to take care of the taxpayers. There was a study done in 2004 called the Volchetti study. Apparently people can't find those books. I seen the book. You go around the old building and you see the different floor plan maps in each office for escape routes. I made those years ago out of that book. Now, in that study in 2004 said it would cost $3.1 million to renovate that building for both municipalities versus $2.6 million, which was probably purchasing property and everything else with the town building the town hall. All right? So back in 04 it was $3.1 million.
Mike, we talked about this, that number is so slanted. That
Well, it was a
3.1
study that was done.
It was a study, I mean, come on, that study is garbage, we all know it.
Well,
3.1 is not a realistic number. I mean, because you break down the numbers that they have it broken down in there, and whether
Did you see it, Rob?
Yeah, I did see it, I actually have a copy of it,
We've been looking for it.
and it's not any
There's
good.
copies right in the building.
It's not, I mean, it's just, again, I'm not arguing with anything you're saying, Mike, but everything you're saying are things that would be covered under renovating a building. An elevator, yes, I mean, that's the biggest thing, but if you were stripping down a building to the exterior of your skin, it's a lot less to put an elevator in than it is to try to retrofit it around other things. So, accessibility is huge, and that's the biggest thing. Same thing with the court. I mean, we're held by those guidelines, whether it's there, somewhere else, it's, so, and I don't think you can make one thing more safer than the other, when it comes to the 2 buildings.
The thing is that, excuse me, you started out by saying the town's been looking to
Oh, for
build
20
another building for
for
20 years, so
20
why 5 years ago did you vote not to? If it was 15 years in the making at that
Because it was a whole
point.
big thing with sharing that building, and then finally we started looking into what the building became.
So
This
you had an
energy- This
agreement.
energy thing became, yeah, I understand that, but we looked into it deeper, I guess, at the time. So what I'm trying to say now is, to me, you're wasting taxpayers' money on investing in that building.
You want to build 2 buildings
Yeah.
for taxpayers' money.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's cheaper To me, I've talked to a lot of different contractors too, and they all say the same thing, to renovate a building is gonna cost a lot.
You got quotes?
Huh?
You got
I
quotes?
don't have quotes, I'm just talking verbally right now, but I.
So you have,
I haven't got quotes,
it's gonna
but
be cheaper
there's-
to renovate, to build two buildings, energy efficient, because everything's gotta be energy efficient now.
An ADA
Then it would be,
compliant?
and ADA
Well,
compliant.
energy
Then
efficient,
it
everything's
is
built
to-
that way now.
Excuse me?
Everything's built that way. You buy a modular home now, the whole
Exactly.
thing comes energy efficient.
Okay, all right, so, yes.
Maybe you're looking at $250,000 on a, let's say a modular ranch, 1,500 square foot modular ranch. You know,
What
just-
office
just-
is in a 1,500 square foot modular range?
I'm just, how much room is the village using now? That office
We
is
need more,
bigger.
if you could be, if I could be quite honest with you.
Well, that office is bigger than what you need because you're meeting there also. But I see the village office,
Well, I don't think we need to argue about sizes here. The main consideration is
but,
we said, we had a motion to rescind it.
right.
That's what I was looking for, a motion to rescind it, and it's at 3-2.
So, yeah,
But see,
that's-
I'm saying too, is village needs tax revenue. You take that building out, Irving School, everybody went to Irving School in Catskill. They made that an apartment building. It's a beautiful apartment building.
What does that have to do with anything?
Let me finish.
Right.
All these old
No
schools, is what I'm
interruption.
trying to say, have been converted into apartment buildings,
It's owned by the
right?
school.
So that one there could go back on the tax rolls for this village for tax revenue.
You can't.
And be a nice apartment building and maintained historically also.
can't.
And then the village could move into something that's decent, healthy, and comfortable for your staff.
I still don't see how
After they
building
buy
two
land.
buildings is more cost efficient than renovating a building we already have.
How can that be? And that will be on the taxpayer also.
Because, can I tell you right
But
now, the
only on
village left the
village
bond out.
taxpayer is
Building
that what you're
units
trying to
is
say,
cheaper
because
than
the
renovating.
village,
Any
the
contract.
village is part of the town. And you're gonna try and raise the
Right,
village.
right, I see
by
all village
doing that.
people here, there's a couple of townspeople here.
We're all in the town. I pay town taxes.
No, what I'm saying is, it's like, the townspeople also, I think, should have something to say, or something to enjoy.
Okay.
But the
I mean-
town people have had something to say on 2 comprehensive plans. 2
Right.
comprehensive studies, and it has not come back in favor of the new building.
And we elected the board that
Most
voted
of those people
to
at those
do,
meetings are village people.
Well, it doesn't, but.
we elected this board
You're trying
too.
to,
I
you're
voted
trying to
town
differentiate
election.
between village and town. If I'm not paying the town tax, then I don't have a problem. But I pay town tax. You know, and I pay a village tax.
So it's a reduced town tax.
Well, so it's reduced, but it's gonna be significantly more if the village, if we have to build an office in the village. So,
Now, is grants out there? I don't know. We're told you can't get grants. There's not a lot of grants out there.
well, I mean, I don't wanna
Let's
turn this
not be-
into,
No,
you know, bash
I
against.
agree with you.
You know, we made a vote. It's 2-2. We'll have to make it again at our next meeting. You know, obviously, I voted one way, Mary voted where, Shannon and Mike voted their way, so it is what it is.
How do we do public comment?
It's not a public hearing.
But when can we give our?
Well, you can,
Oh, sometime.
You can forward any comments
You
you
can
have to
forward.
me,
and she'll forward
to
it
the
to me.
village, and I'll get them to
She'll forward
St.
it to
Roger
me.
Butler. Thank you.
I'm only gonna take a couple more because I got other things. Go ahead, Larry.
How many times can you vote on this? Is there any limit?
No.
Okay.
No, it's really not. I mean,
Right,
when a new
right.
board comes in, a new board can vote something totally different.
Right.
So that's why when things get drawn out like this, like you saw with the jail for the county, it gets dragged out, new members come in, they have better ideas, and it comes back to the original idea. 20 years later, at a 65% increase in labor costs, a 3 to 5% increase in prevailing rates a year. So by delaying it, regardless if you go new or renovation, all you're doing is making it more expensive.
Right.
So in the 5 years that we haven't got it done, the cost of that building has gone up 10 to 15% in labor prices. And God knows material prices now, the way those are going crazy. So,
One more thing out there. ideally, I would love to find a piece of property within this village, that water and sewer, and then you could build a building, both municipalities to share, and a brand new energy efficient building, and put it to rest. If somebody had an idea of any property available in the village itself, so we can do that consolidation. It's just that old building to me is like an albatross, it's unhealthy, people get sick in
So you
there.
can cross out all your points about the travel time from the town then.
Oh, I understand that, but I mean, the travel time, the town hall should be in the center of the town. The town hall.
I
not
think
the
we can,
village.
I think we can do this. It's a big thing, but I think we can do it together.
I'll talk. I agree. I'll talk.
I just have one.
Oh, yeah, hold on a second. I got two other people that yell. Okay.
The board had already, you hired a firm to draw up a plan that you could redo the building, it was like 3-4 years ago.
We hired a firm, Ryan Big Associates,
I
to
thought there was
develop
like
floor
Butler
plan.
Mays and something, what was that?
What's that?
Was it another one like Butler Mays?
It was Ryan Big Associates,
Okay.
Roland Butler Mays,
Okay,
was the architect firm that they brought in to draft the, no relation to me,
yeah,
to draft the floor plan. And that's what we had, and that's what we were sitting on for 2 or 3 years, but then the board decided they wanted to go with Delaware Engineering, so they voted to go with Delaware Engineering.
so that plan was abandoned, that drawing?
That plan was, yeah, essentially because they were looking elsewhere.
Because I remember that discussion, the cost is gonna be closer to $1 million, and this $3 million number here now is,
No, it wouldn't, a million.
It's gotta be for a different
no,
plan.
It wouldn't be, the plan they proposed would not be $1 million. It would be significantly more than that.
so I don't know where that number came from.
Well, no, he was talking about a study. Now, well, not this project itself, that if they were to redo the town hall at that time, but I think if you read the study, it talks about one room at a time. I'm not 100% sure, which, yes, that drives the cost up. If you're doing one room at a time, to go one room to the next room to the next room, every time it's considered, it's gonna be a separate job. So you're gonna have all these different costs in there, multiplied by however many rooms you have. I think that's where that number comes from. Not 100% sure.
Does the gym have to be part of this project? Is that cost prohibitive?
Um,
Can it be just?
The gym, I don't think needs to be, but I think it's pretty, I mean, we grew up here, so,
Yeah.
you know, on a weekend, you could go there and there'd be 40, 50 people in there trying to play basketball. You don't have that anymore, but it can be used for, the cultural center uses it, the library uses it, I mean, other entities use it, so, would it be the primary focus? No, but if, like Mike said, all those things need to be addressed. There is water, there's issues with the floor, it needs insulation, but, you know, these are things that would be addressed if you stayed. Now, if you stayed in there, do you bite the bullet? Do you renovate the gym first, make that temporary offices, and then find a temporary place for our court, and then rehab the building? Or do we just bring in temporary office trailers, again, look for a place for the court, whole court, and do the whole building at once? I mean, these are all different ways it could be done. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just saying that doing it piecemeal, one room at a time, is not the way to do it. And I don't think that was ever our intent when we talked about it.
Hi, do you have any cost estimates that are not from 2004 for both projects?
No, we don't have any cost estimates because all we have is a floor plan from one engineer and I believe discussions from another one. So right now, there's no discussion. I mean, they could give us a number and say, oh, it could be anywhere from $200 to $400 a square foot, which it could be. But, you know, it depends on the level of detail and the level of all the extras you want to put into it. I mean, you want it to be functional, but it doesn't need to be, you know.
So you're voting on a project without knowing the cost?
We're not voting on a project without knowing the cost. We're voting on which direction to go with the project. Do we go direction A or do we go direction B? Has nothing to do with cost right now.
How can you
Absolutely.
make that full without knowing the cost?
It's got nothing to do with cost. How can, you can't, I'm not gonna argue with anybody, and if you're gonna, Don, if you're gonna interrupt me, we're gonna ask you to leave, because we do have that right. If you're gonna interrupt me, I'm trying to talk here, please. Of course, the cost is important, but if all we're gonna focus is on cost, then I guess we just stay there and keep dumping, $50,000-$60,000 a year just to maintain the building, to keep it so we can stay there and not spend a lot of money. After 30 years, we've invested in a new building, but we still have the same problem. It's, I mean, so how do we get a cost estimate? As I said before, I spent $300,000 on an engineer for him to tell me how much he thinks it's gonna cost. That's just an idea. I work in construction. We bid a project that the engineer's estimate was $900,000. We were low bidder at $1.9 million, okay? So the estimate doesn't mean anything. We've bid jobs where the estimate's been $2 million, and we've been $1 million. We've got the job done and made money. So the estimate, that's all it is an estimate. We could have had an estimate to redo that, or build a brand new building for $2 million. Okay, well, guess what? Lumber prices went sky high. They doubled. Do you think the contractor eats that increase in cost? That gets passed directly on to the municipality or the owner of the project. So that will shoot your budget or your estimate, shoot out. It's no good. It's irrelevant. So at this point, all we're doing is looking to move in one direction or the other. Once you have that direction made, then you focus on what the cost is going to be. You don't say, okay, we're only going to spend $300,000. You have to be reasonable and say, all right, this is how much space we need. Do we want black walnut floors? Do we want tile, or do we want carpet? That's where you build up all your costs on these projects. Not the size of the building, none of that stuff. It's all the detail work. So that's where a lot of your cost comes from. So, I mean, you can't effectively do your job if you're gonna say, okay, we're only gonna spend X amount of money. In a perfect world, that'd be great. But we don't have that luxury because we don't have the money to do it. We have money in reserves. It's not enough to do a building, any way you look at it, but it pays a good chunk. We have potential for, a solar array coming in the town, and when that started, we were basically not going to get much, and I think that this board really held our line to Flint Mine, and they've offered a pretty substantial host agreement, okay, which is 20 years. Over 20 years, that host agreement will bring the town an extra $4.5 million. Right, and the power line. So we have revenue streams here that can make any building zero impact on the taxpayer, just because these increased projects coming in. There's other ones that are talking about coming down the railroad tracks. Again, we get money for that, smaller amount, but it's still money. It's still stuff that can be used to keep our taxes low, which here in the town, I think they're probably some of the lowest. They're lowest in the county, but they're probably some of the lowest in the state. In the village, you pay, I think, 75 cents per thousand. In the town, it's like $1.40 or something.
It was, yeah, that's the current rate.
So, I mean, on a $100,000 home, you're either paying $140 in the town or $77 in the village. So,
I just think town, those who goes to town hall, it's not saying that the village can stay in that building. It's not saying that the village has to get out of that building, or you have to sell the building. It was just an idea. But the village, if the village still owns it, the village can keep that building. Now, I know in the past, the village had rented office space to an insurance company and stuff like that. Now, I guess it was okay with the school, I don't, it was a long time ago. But, that's something else that could also be considered by the village. And I'm not saying that get rid of the building or sell it and make apartments out of it. The village can still stay there. It's their building, it's your building.
And that's the main reason we're here, to see if you're still gonna partner with us on this, or if we have to find another way to do it.
Right.
I just need to make a comment.
it's your last one.
Okay. You keep talking about energy efficient.
Right.
When you do a renovation, you make it energy efficient.
Right.
So that's off the table, no matter if you have your own building or you stay in this building. It will be
But you
energy
use the
efficient.
R word.
Excuse me?
The R word, renovation. Renovation sometimes is almost double the amount, because you gotta
I don't
tear
think
out
it is.
first and then you gotta rebuild. When you do a new, you rebuild,
Do
you're
you have
building all
access,
new.
do you have access to where
I've
you
been in
want
the
to put
construction
your-
business all my life.
Okay,
And I worked in New York City in heavy construction.
okay.
And I had my own business. So I know how construction works, and I know what it takes. And in my job now, I see a lot of renovation work going on. You have to rip out, and replace. If you do more than 50%, everything has to be brought on code, according to New York State code laws and stuff like that. So, that's all I'm trying to say.
And I get what Mike's trying to say. The only thing, we had Ryan Biggs come in, and the only thing in that building, as is right now, sure, but the only thing that's not meeting code right now is the roof. The roof does not meet code if you do a renovation, because now it's gonna be insulated, so there's gonna be a much higher snow load on there. So, the trusses would have to be either doubled up or beef up what's already there. That's structurally wise, as of right now,
Right.
without doing any more investigation, they can say that's all.
Well, your windows.
That's it. Well, yeah, I'm saying that all that stuff's gonna be new. I'm saying structurally wise.
Yes, you're right.
But,
Foundations.
right. If anybody has a question, I'll do a couple more questions, but it's not gonna be piling on somebody or anything like that. So if anybody has a question regarding the project itself, we'll take a couple more questions. Other than that, we're gonna move forward. But, all right. One second. But when we do end, you can focus all your anger at Amy, send her emails, and she'll forward them to me. And, you know,
I think most people in here have my email address anyway.
address them the best we can. One second, Kathy. Go ahead, Fran.
I just have one, exactly who owns that building?
Coxsackie Athens School District.
Then why are we putting all of this money into Coxsackie Athens School District?
It's owned by us,
investment.
but
Would you
they
do-
still, if it reverts, if it's not a community center anymore, if we attempt to use it for a different use, it reverts back.
Would you do that to your house?
We're not here for an argument, okay?
The thing
That's
is
my
that
thing.
who
owns it
Listen,
exactly?
she just told you, as long as it stays a municipal building,
Yes,
it is considered
Yes.
ours. If we try to turn, or they try to turn around and
Yes.
sell it, then that's when the school district is gonna step in. But they're not gonna step in if we renovate it, and they're not gonna try to take it back. But, I mean,
I've heard
it's,
that before.
Renovate, they don't want much.
I mean, it's the way it is. They own it, but it falls under their guidelines. The second it changes that, and it doesn't mean it goes back, it can go back. But is the school district going to invest their time in taking it back? Probably not.
So, another thing I don't understand is when this first happened back in the 70s, why wasn't it given to both municipalities at the same time? To me, paying rent is double dipping, because you are town taxpayers and the town paying the village rent.
You gotta
That-
pay
that
rent
makes-
to have offices in the building, right?
No, but what I'm saying is, why wasn't it a shared building that they both owned it, you just share the expenses?
I was one
And
year old
actually,
in
you're part- you're-
1977, Mike. I don't know.
You separate the expenses because the town uses more rules than the village does. And I would understand if the town should pay 60%.
Right now, the village is paying for everything.
But we
Well, I know.
we can't argue about how it's split up, just because that was set up before any of us were in this spot. So, you know, so that, I mean, that obviously, and that was something I think if we move forward, would have been addressed with an agreement with the village for just basically a prorated share of the utilities.
Right.
But, I mean, and that would be our ability as a board to rewrite how the building is paid for. But, yeah, I mean, that's outside of our scope on, you know, you see it with fire contracts. I mean, over the years, they change so much, but the contract never changes, but what's expected changes, and it never stays up to date, so.
Were you looking into getting grants, or are you talking about bonding? How are you going to be paying for any of it?
It all, well, we do have probably enough to pay half in cash. then, you know, it all depends on which way you go. If you stay there, there's gonna be more grants available because it's a historic building. But, you know, of course, our engineer, regardless of which one we use, that's part of their job, is to seek out grants and additional funding. There are grants out there for shared service buildings. There are specific grants for elevators. There are grants for handicap accessible. So there's a lot of different grant opportunities. It's a matter of what we qualify and what we get. But it would never be the intent to just, you know, sign a bond for however much and just pass it along. You know, those are things that we have to look at.
But
Part of the
renovating,
cost
you think you could potentially get more to do the renovating than you start new? Is that what I heard?
I would think so, just because there's more opportunities because of where it's located. And that would be a shared building, things like that. That if it's out there, if it's somewhere else, it eliminates those, but there's still opportunities for grants.
Yeah, and the community center part of it too,
Right.
which is the gym and stuff. I presume you're not building a gym in the middle of nowhere,
No,
so it's the.
I mean,
the gym-
I say that, I don't know, we really haven't got too far into it, so.
The other question was, you talked about, well, we can't really get cost estimates and stuff, but, and because of one of the things of, you know, your choices, but if you made the same choices, if they said, well, to renovate it, it's gonna be this much per square foot, or to build new, it's gonna be this much per square foot, and you eliminate both of those, you're just doing a comparison. You should be able to still do that. And we were getting our estimates in order to go for grants. We got them right from the start.
Right.
Didn't cost us anything to go get those.
It's not that simple when it comes to this building, I can tell you that. You can do all that, but again, all that's delaying, that's all it's doing is delaying the project and increasing the cost. That's what it does. The prevailing rates go up 3 to 5% July
I'm
1st.
sorry, I just wondered, what's delaying it?
If you go out and seek grants and try to do all these other things before having any of this other stuff in place.
I had to get the estimates before I went for the grants.
No, I know that, but I'm saying,
So why
but
can't we have the estimates? That's all I'm
it's
saying.
not, and how much did your estimate come in for? Was it right on budget when they
It
bid
was
it?
actually good, and the bid we got was actually 100,000 lower than the
Well, now,
estimate.
let me ask you this. Did the project get dragged out so long that you didn't get it, that you possibly lost some of your funding? Because the project wasn't out for bid?
No,
You didn't have to give any money back to New
no,
York State?
absolutely not. But that's why we had to start it now, is because the deadline was coming due.
Okay.
No, we did not have to give anything back.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's if you're gonna apply for grants, but I mean.
No, I just meant for
because
the
we don't-
estimates, so that, because the question keeps coming up is, what costs more? Not that I care, because I really don't like canceling history. So it is the whole of, you know, keeping the history to me is more important, but it is everybody keeps asking it, what is the difference between the two? You could get an apples to apples comparison. Is it gonna be relevant or exactly the thing? No, we were 100,000, which is about a third less than what the estimate came in at. So you're not gonna use it for anything else, but it could be can you give us an estimate for this thing and this thing, so that we can compare them?
Well, we can ask, we can do that, but if it's not gonna be what we want, I'm not gonna waste time to go out and get an estimate for something that's not what we want. Because there's too many things here. We have a court system that's involved, which drives the price up because all the things we have to do. There's a lot of different aspects to this building than would be to the addition at the library. And wouldn't make it worth our time to invest in it, because again, all it's gonna delay is the project, because now we're adding an extra step. If we have the plan out for bid, we can seek grants after it's designed, after it goes out for bid. We can do that. If we do it before, again, it just pushes the overall design and everything back. And the prevailing rates, the way they go up, some of them go up 3 to 5% a year. Our laborers in Columbia County went up 27% this year, 27%. Now, we didn't take that into consideration in our bids, but any job that's extended into this year, we have to pay that new rate. So, again, you just keep delaying, like I said, with the prison.
If I understand what you're saying is you would have the whole project figured out so that you can get a very reasonable estimate?
Yeah, we're going.
I guess I was just looking at it by the square footage.
Well,
So that's
I mean,
all we got.
We could do it by the square footage, but again, that's the thing with the courts.
Right.
They have guidelines, and so whether it's a new building or
Right.
an old building,
Exactly.
those will be the same, but
Exactly.
But, I mean, you'll never be able to get a true apples to apples comparison with renovating compared to brand new, because there's a lot of differences between the two. I mean, you can get a closer idea, but, you know, again, they're just estimates and with the way the construction materials are going and the delays and everything. I mean, you know, if you want to put a fence up in your yard, chain link fence, it's going to take you 12 weeks to get that chain link mesh. Most common fence out there, you can't get it. We can't get paint to paint the roads because there's a shortage on paint. We can't get plastic pipe. We ordered the pipe for a village project. We were told 120 days to get a piece of plastic pipe. Again, those are all things that are pushing to delay the project, pushing the cost up. And at this point, I think we've really it's run its course. I mean, it has been 20 years. At least 20 years.
I think it was 5.
No, they've been talking about either this or new building. That's been longer than that. Yeah.
But if it was decided 5 years ago.
No, to this part, to take over the building, yes. But for over 20 years, I mean, before I was on the board, they had plans drawn up for a building and they're still in the office. So it's been going on for a long time.
They actually bought extra property out by the town highway garage just for that reason, about 20 years ago.
Yeah, so I mean, it's to the point now, that's why we need to go, because we need to either move in this direction or this direction. I
I
mean,
guess I'm still with you're gonna have to, you can tie into the village water and sewer, or now you have to build a septic and you've gotta have water access if you're going somewhere outside of the village. Those kinds of things are not cheap, and yet I don't see anybody really looking at them to be able to compare them more
That's all.
effectively than this is what we want.
That's all been taken into consideration.
that'll be taken into
Village
consideration.
water out there, so.
I mean, listen, it's not a matter of what we want, it's a matter of what we can get, and we're not, it's a waste of time to do it before. You need a detailed, accurate estimate. You don't think, oh, shake your head all you want, but I'm in construction
So
too.
this part, just to get people to say it's a balanced thing of, you could get an estimate that, yes, is just very,
I can give you, listen, I don't want to argue with you, I can give you estimates, okay, I can give you estimates. I can say it's gonna be $200 a square foot for that,
it's not you, you're not a
250 for
contractor. We
renovation.
got our estimates from contractors.
Right.
Many of them
but
didn't
you know
even
what?
visit the building, they did it based on square footage. And
Right.
they said, oh, if it's this age
But
of
I'm
the
not-
building, this is
One
what
estimate
I'm
engineers told us $225 a square foot for the building. So 6,000 square foot building, do the math. You
So
know?
what's the other one?
Huh?
$1,350,000.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, but yet, now, what's an estimate, what's the square foot price for the renovation? I don't know that. Rob knows that, but, you know, you can find that out.
Well,
But that's
but
a
it's all relative to what we want, I mean, you know, again, it comes down to the finish, and what you can afford on one, you're not gonna do the same because you already have an existing building, okay? So now, you're gonna build a building. So there's a cost right there that's gonna put a skew at one. So, I mean, you're really not gonna, I mean, all you can do is say, yeah, it's gonna be this much for this side, or this type, or this much for that type. All it is a guess. I don't wanna go with a guess. I want numbers, I want hard numbers. It's that simple. That's my choice. I have a board here that can decide if they wanna go a different route, but I want hard, accurate numbers. So if I need to bond something, I can go to the bank and do what I have to do. That's a choice. That's a choice we made, and after 20 years, it's a choice that's gotta move one way or the other. So, and it's I mean, just to get a grant to delay the whole project, because grant's still tax money. We're still paying for it one way or another. Regardless if you don't think it is, grant is tax money.
I didn't say that.
You know, I know,
All
I
I'm
know
saying
you
is
did.
it's a decision
I
that
know.
seems to be made that's still very in the dark as to which way to go.
That's why we have to decide one way or another.
You're making a decision based on not having enough
It's gonna take a lot of
information.
time.
Listen, I'm not arguing, we're making a decision on what should be, what the community wants. That's what it is. That's what the decision is based on. So,
Was there a community forum that I missed? I'm sorry if there
there
was.
was 2 comprehensive plans done, one in 2003 and one last year. That's where you could have discussed it in there. So, there wasn't specific questions about the town and the village staying together. There was questions about them, just basically There wasn't any questions about that, but the overall sentiment was that people predominantly said that they thought they should stay together and work together. So that was in the comprehensive plan. And in 2003, specific questions were raised that weren't asked, that weren't asked this time. But when they redid it to get questions in there, it was too late to get the questions in because basically it was already at a point that they were sending it out, so.
We'd already decided to stay together.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really a need to ask those
Right,
questions
so-
the same way.
But there was, I mean, if you filled out, I'm sure you did, comprehensive plan, the questionnaire. Some people touched on it, some people don't, you know, it's a matter of what
But if
you
the
want to say.
community, you just said, mostly wanted to stay together, then why is the discussion
I said-
without an input from the community that there may even be this option of going somewhere else? That's
Well-
what I don't understand.
Well, because when you start doing all that, again, all you do is delay the project, because everybody's gonna have a different idea. Everybody. The second, if Mary decides she's not gonna run again, somebody else comes on the board, they have a good idea. She doesn't run, she has a good idea. Are we supposed to investigate every single idea that's put in front of us?
No, I thought we just said about bringing the community and finding out what the community wants.
The community, we did.
And the community said, keep it together, so I
Yes.
don't understand why this is bringing up this question at the board.
I understand that. We're here to represent the community, but that's not how people always vote. So that's why it's gotta be down. We've already made the motion. The motion needs to be rescinded and reversed. That's where we're at. So the motion was made 5 years ago to work together. But it's since been changed, but there's not been an official vote. So that has to happen. So as of right now, we have a motion that says we're taking over the building. When we vote at our next meeting, that could change, because we're in a 2-2 block right now. So it stays the way it is, until we vote, so. Does anybody have anything else before we move on?
Just one final thing, is this subject to this referendum?
This itself, no. The project itself, no. No. Expenditure of the money would be.
Would be, you said?
Would be. Certain aspects of the money would be. So,
Thank you.
not 100%. I said no more.
I just would hope that our elected officials would consider what the majority of the community desires, and that is that the town and the village stay together. That's all. The majority,
Well, how do we get that out there? Because the majority of the community I'm seeing is Old Village. And as
Here,
the townspeople
tonight.
need to be aware,
tonight,
of
the
this.
town
Town
also
people
was
out in the
included in the
town. I said there's
comprehensive
14
plan. Am I
miles
correct?
away from here.
So
Those
the
people need to
comprehensive
have
plan,
something. There's a few
Our
things in
town-
the
Hold on.
This is
Stop interrupting. Mike, I got what you're saying, but the thing is, I have never had one person from the town,
You're correct.
other than someone that's on this board, say they want a town building out in the town. I've never had that.
right,
I've heard, oh, a lot of people want it. Well, no one's beating down the door. I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying.
I've had a couple of village people tell me to get out of that Old Village.
Yeah, so I mean,
I'm not mentioning any names.
and you're gonna find that on both ends. You're gonna find that on both ends, but I'm saying, you know, you're more likely to get people to turn out to these things that are against something
Of course.
than in favor of it. And we've never had anybody come before this board and say, no, we want a building out there. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
I mean, and I think that, yeah, in 2003, that one, because that one actually asked specific questions, that you could definitively say that's what they wanted. This one was just, this last one was sentiment, and so. All right, Mr. Campbell, I'm gonna leave you to the end. No, I'm gonna leave you to the end.
Oh, come on.
No,
We got a
because,
special thing.
We got a nice audience.
I know,
Why do you
but,
hear about Quarry Road?
no, they don't wanna hear about Quarry Road.
Yeah, they do.
So we're
Confidence
gonna,
goes along.
it won't be long. Rick, do you wanna say anything or not? 'Cause you're on the agenda.
Well, I didn't realize that this was going to turn into what it's turned into. But You know, I was on the town board when we voted on this, and actually made the motion, and it was seconded by Mike Beatty. So it was passed 3-2. And I want to know what changed from the time the town board voted on it 5 years ago to the time being now. So what has changed with the way that people feel about this?
Well, I mean, I'll defer if anybody wants to answer.
There's a lot of investigation on that building and the needs on that building that we didn't realize back then. And things have changed environmentally and everything else. It's, you know,
In 5 years?
it's changed a lot.
In 5 years?
And a couple of years ago, when the transaction didn't happen, a few was relatively pretty ticked off at the village at the time. And it was kind of like, things were said. Wow, now we don't want the building. You know,
Well, I
things
mean,
like that got me thinking.
The thing that I look at, Mike, and I'm
I
sorry.
don't want to get into it.
Yeah, no, I'm
I don't want
sorry,
to get
just-
just back and forth here.
Just the way that I'm looking at, even if with inflated prices, even if you were to go, you know, it started out at, I remember it was $225 a square foot, which would have been $1.35 million.
For what?
For 6,000 square feet.
The 6,000 square foot
Oh, for a
building.
new building.
The building over here. When we originally did the numbers, when you and I were out back looking at where the ports could have been, remember?
Yeah.
And we were doing a price analysis of
Well,
whether
that was
take
for
it.
something new building back.
Right, that was considering where the ports could have been,
Right.
instead of putting an elevator in. So what, even if you went with a little bit of inflated per square footage, up to 300 square foot is 1.8. Do you believe that you could build a brand new building for less than 1.8 with having all needs met?
I can answer that. Rick, first of all, it's nice to see you again. The next time we meet at Stewart's, though, you gotta buy the coffee.
Okay.
The answer is, and Rob can tell you better than me, but we vetted 5 engineering companies, and I have to do this really quick. We vetted 5 engineering companies, the board settled on one. And all we've done so far is a basic needs assessment of each department, and then they are working on a conceptual plan. The building committee looked at that plan, not the whole board, just the building committee, and it became obvious that more changes had to be made. They're taking those changes back. We should have those changes in about 2 to 3 weeks. At that point, that'll be if that concept, who's speaking to your point, if that concept is palatable, not approved, just acceptable in that moment, they can then cost it out. And that's when you'll get your answer, okay? And I think Mr. Serrano was right. The initial, a lot of the 3 out of the 5 engineering companies talked about 220 to 235 a square foot. They were in that ballpark. And they all built buildings, those 3 in particular. So we're close, we're not there. I have to tell you, I serve Rob, and I can verify, I am testifying that he has made more inquiries with various people on the village board and the village attorney. He's made plenty of them. Only now, in my meeting, you know, I met the mayor once before at another meeting, but I'm very encouraged by the fact that she's even here. The fact that she showed up is a positive step forward, but we still have communication issues. For example, any communications between the mayor and the supervisor is not well known. So perhaps we can work on that, and as we take our steps forward over the next 3 weeks